Welcome back to another episode of Living With A Rotary, featuring the RX-8 that I bought a few weeks ago for £650. Now you may remember last week we dynoed this thing. It produced 162.9 horsepower at the flywheels.
It's
excellent. So we're missing a few horses, which is why I am now up north, I'm at Rotary Revs, and I'm going to introduce you to a couple of guys, Josh and Teddy.
How you doing, Alex?
Hey up, pals, how's it going? What we're going to be doing today, stripping the engine, having a look at everything, seeing what damage has been done, and next week we're going to rebuild it, make it all good.
But before that, let's get the car in the air and inspect underneath.
Get your car on the ramp, let's have a look around your brakes and your tyres and your wheels. Now while we're here we can check your springs as well, which aren't snapped. Ones don't normally snap, it's when we get to the back, which we'll check when we're underneath. You've got EBC red stuff pads in.
They're better when they're hot,
Better
right?
when they're hot, yeah. More of a track pad, they still do work on road. A bit of corrosion up back, but not much to worry about. Check this spring, cool.
Bit of a lip on the discs, right? But that's nothing
Very
to worry
slight,
about.
but nothing to worry about. You've got, looks like you had a new caliper here, obviously the rest of them are painted. Bit of corrosion, only minor.
And what about problem areas for rust?
It can come out to here in serious cases, otherwise it's your sill, which do look to have been repaired at some point.
You don't see any rust, right?
Not as of yet.
Yes! Amazing, I've done well.
Another thing to look out for on these is seized calipers.
Yeah.
Very, very common, which is why that one's had it replaced. They all seem fine. I might be the first guy you've bought without a mega amount of rust.
Yes! Yes! So sump's been replaced, right, as per the paperwork?
It does say sump's been replaced, but you have got a slight oil leak. Drop links, very, very common.
These ones look to
They do look to have been replaced fairly recently. Another thing you want to look out for on these as well is collapsing engine mounts. Oh no, it's collapsed.
Oh.
Yeah, it does look like it's been touching, can you see it, Mark? Same with that one. Starter motors, looks like that's been replaced fairly recently.
The starter motors, they were recalled, weren't they, and then upgraded to a 14-tooth starter motor, is that right?
It was more of a bulletin. Mazda knew about the problem. Between 53 and 04, they'll have a really weak, low-power starter motor, like 1.3 kilowatts. Then they upgraded it to the 2 kilowatt if it was mentioned whilst the car was in warranty period.
We've got rust on the exhaust.
That's pretty normal. It gets really hot, and if cold water touches it, it's going to cause some rust and corrosion. Most people just take the shielding off when they take the cat off and gut it, because it's collapsed internally from poor ignition system and things like that.
So in terms of rust underneath, so far we're only halfway through, but it's not too bad.
It's not the worst I've seen.
To be fair. I mean, the problem area is for rust, really the rear quarters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of bubbling there. It looks original, to be fair, and it's probably been kept inside a garage or something along those lines for most of its life.
Wicked, we have a snap spring, but no evidence of crash damage or anything like that, which is always...
Nothing obvious.
And this exhaust as well, it's the Racing Beat exhaust.
Well, it looks like someone has modified the tips.
Yeah, you can see here, look, there's welding that's coming off in my hand.
bit of a dirty weld there.
Yeah, just the tip.
Doesn't count then. So overall, give me a score out of 10.
8 with some new springs, we'll give it an 8 with some new springs.
Give it an 8 with new springs.
With a solid 8 out of 10, let's now find out what's going on in the engine.
Right, now is the moment of truth, it's compression time. How does that work?
We take out the leading spark plugs. They get replaced with these little probes. From that point, we insert another probe, connect onto it. The cable end goes to our little module, and then the laptop does the rest essentially.
And you just crank over and then you see how much compression there isn't.
That's right.
Perfect. What's a good and what's a bad reading?
What we class as a fail really is anything under a 6.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing 5s, you got to start thinking about having a rebuild at some point.
And now for the moment of truth.
What's this face? Oh. What's the number?
I'll get you some numbers.
Can't be that bad. Cool, so now we're back in the office. All the guys, when they saw the compression test results, were like, oh! Which can only be a good sign. Talk me through the results.
So each one of these is a compression So obviously you've got 3 sides to a rotor, and every time that turns, you create one of them. So as you can see, there's a pattern. So say that's quite a tall one, and you've got 2 at the same size, and you've got another tall one. So they're in 3, so that's either rotation of your eccentric shaft. And then obviously that's your rotor 1, so that's your front rotor. Then you've got rotor 2, which is your rear rotor. Your rear rotor looks quite low, as you can see the spikes. Normally the decent one is up to that midway line there. That one's pretty even, so we're not really suspecting anything like side seal failure or apex seal failure. That one could just be worn. Whereas this top one, it's quite uneven. We could be suspecting some maybe cracked side seal. So what we're going to do now is just work out a compression. A good figure is anything 6 and up. So you remember how I said your lower one was very even?
Yeah.
It is spot on 6. Your second rotor seems pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Where your problems lie is your first rotor. So that's your first spike, which is 5.2, which is low, but it's not mega low. Then you've got 4.5 and it just gets worse at 4.3.
Wow.
It needs a rebuild, that's long and short of it.
So the reason that this engine's actually running is probably because the second rotor is
carrying it.
Is carrying it.
Yeah.
Right now it's crunch time, the engine is about to come out. And to play us in is Josh.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
They're thick though, yeah. That's that ratchet. That's that ratchet.
With the engine out in just under an hour, it's put on a stand and wheeled over to the operating table. Cue the time lapse.
Right, so now's the moment of truth. The engine's been stripped of all its ancillaries and now it's time to open it up and have a look.
So we've removed the rear iron from the engine and we've actually found that the engine has been bridge ported. It's got a slight street port on the auxiliary port. The exhaust port should have been ported because the intake port has been done, but it's actually still stock, which is surprising. A street port is an advance on the intake port and a slight tweak on the exhaust port just to get the exhaust gases out a little bit quicker. And what you're doing by adjusting the intake timing is you're getting more air and fuel into the engine and more exhaust gases out quickly, therefore creating a little bit more power. A bridge port is actually cutting away a little eyebrow. The apex seal runs around the edge of the rotor housing. From cutting this eyebrow, you're actually giving it a little bridge for the apex seal to go across. So if you cut this whole section out, the apex seal will just drop into the port. Adding this section, there wouldn't be any point unless you made a chamfer in the rotor housing as well. The face itself doesn't look too bad. It looks like it's been quite hot around the exhaust port, but nothing too major. It's become clear that the rotor bearing slipped badly.
So we can actually say we've spun a bearing.
Yeah, it's spun a bearing. So there's like a little locating pin on the bearing itself and that should be located here. So the housings are pretty chattered. And there's actually, the chrome is actually starting to come away on this outer edge. This is usually caused by poor lubrication on the seals. Because the chrome has started to come away, you can't even resurface them. Yeah, that's
Okay, that's the technical term, is it?
Yeah, proper, well and truly. You can see the bearing's supposed to sit flush up to that edge. So because the bearing has been spinning inside that journal inside, the rotor's going to be scrap as well. You can see the copper coming through and the bearing is actually moved backwards inside the rotor. The bearing shouldn't ever move as it's got a locating pin inside the rotor. So it should be sat flush into the actual journal of the rotor, and the locating pin should be sat in there and it should never be able to rotate.
Yeah, so we can agree that I've bought a very good car, but a very poor engine.
So these are the Peck Seals that everyone talks about. These sit down the side of the rotor, and this is what makes the combustion basically. This is where your compression comes from, along with your side seals and corner seals.
Have you ever taken a rotary apart and they've been completely shot, or they've been missing, or completely degraded?
Yep, so we see that a lot, normally due to detonation. That is caused by an engine getting too hot or using poor quality fuel. It's a half bridge part. So if you were to do a full bridge part, you'd do the ones on the front iron, the ones on the rear iron, and you'd also bridge the primaries on the centre iron. But that said, with any street part, the primaries should be ported. So both the primaries and secondaries and the exhaust ports on all the irons should be touched with a street part.
It'll be scrapped,
but the iron looks well.
So something from this engine is going to be reused in the original car. That's good. That's exciting.
Hopefully it'll come straight out.
There we go.
That's how it should be. We probably will end up replacing it for a good second-hand one that we've got.
Right, so now we're going to have a look in the front, and the first thing we can see is the bridge port there.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
The size of the actual cut on the iron is okay, it's reasonable, but the chamfer on the housing is too small.
Oh, there they come.
Rotor looks okay. It looks like there's been a little bit of blow-by around the side seal and the corner seals. If you look down the side of the corner seal, you can see like a little black mark where the exhaust gases have been passing past. So that's actually caused by the side seal clearance between the side seal and the corner seal, the clearance being too large. So if you cut the side seal too short, the side seal moves side to side and leaks exhaust gases around the sides of the seal, the side seal and the corner seal, making you lose compression and therefore losing power. So if you cut them too tight, once the engine's heated up, say if you do a track day and you've got hot EGTs, what actually happens is the side seals will expand to then bind up against the corner seals and they can actually snap. So we've got a rotor bearing that's actually in one piece. You can see the locating pins still in place. All the grooves look intact. The front rotor had lower compression in comparison to the rear, and it shows by the height of the apex seal. The apex seal's about 4.8 millimeters at the top, 4.7 on the other side, so yeah, that's pretty worn in comparison to the other one that could be down to poor lubrication. On the housings, they've actually got two ports and they use an oil metering system, which is a pump that sits on the front cover, and basically that injects engine oil into the rotor housings, and that's what lubricates the apex seals. But if you can see by the angle of these, they're actually spraying outwards, so that means when your apex seal is sat in the housing, it's lubricating the top side and the bottom side, but nothing in the middle really. So in most cases you'll see like a few lines that runs around the centre of the housing, and that's because that gets less lubrication in the middle. And on the R3, they actually added a third injector in the middle to lubricate the full length of the seal. That's why R3s usually last longer compression wise. Rotaries have a scarily low base oil pressure, so when you sat at idle at 800 RPM, it's no good for bearings. So all these town driven cars, these are the cars that start to get bearing failure. When we do remaps on the stock ECU, we'll actually raise the idle speed from 800 RPM up to like 1000 RPM. It's not mega noticeable, but the oil pressure is raised substantially. And for all the people that are still using 530 engine oil, bearing failure.
Exactly. If you've got an RX-8, then 1040 millers.
Yep, semi-synthetic is the way to go, in our opinion anyway. Another thing you can do, Mazda added the third oil injector to lubricate the seals a little bit more, and what you can actually do, add two-stroke oil to the fuel tank. What that does is just adds a little bit of lubrication within the fuel.
And rule of thumb is 150 mil of two-stroke to every tank of fuel, right?
That's your front stationary gear bearing. You can see that nice little copper colour again. So yeah, that bearing's shot.
That's not good either.
No, that'd be straight in bin.
So remind me, from the engine that I've given you guys, what are we going to be reusing?
The centre iron and the rotor.
So I've literally given you guys a third of the engine to use. Well, you're welcome. For anyone else who owns an RX-8, there are some nice tips and tricks to to keep your engine healthy and not having it looking like this after a few years of use. And we were discussing flames, weren't we?
Yeah.
Like some proper flames. So if you guys think that we should maybe have a chat about trying to get more flames out of this thing, then maybe write some comments below. And actually, we're going to do it, so screw you guys. Right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I've certainly learnt a lot, especially that the rotary in this car is pretty buggered. But fear not, because it's going to be rebuilt by the guys at Rotary Revs. Speaking of the guys at Rotary Revs, they've given me a present to give away to you. This rotor and rotor housing, we're going to be giving away completely at random to a subscriber worldwide. And thank you very much to the guys at Rotary Revs. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Let us know in the comments as well what you'd like to see in this series.
Join us next time on Living With A Rotary, where we'll show you exactly how to rebuild one of these awesome engines.
The magical moment that everyone seems to love, Peck Seals. So with the springs in place, we just slide it down.
And it's as simple as that. Maybe I should have a go. As ever, if you've enjoyed the series, you can watch more episodes here. You can subscribe to Car Throttle right here. And don't forget to check out the Car Throttle shop down there. Josh, play me out. See ya.